Welcome. I'm your co-host, Katie L. Leeds, Chief Owl at Outstanding Women Leaders, Professional Coaching and Podcast, and your strategic partner for Owl Things Leadership and Life.
And I'm Marissa Senzaki, a holistic career coach and startup consultant on a mission to make human resources more humane.
Today's episode, we are talking about the humans and the concept of leadership and power.
So, Katie, tell us a little bit about the conversations that have come up in your coaching this week. I think it's interesting that there's someone that's been quoted twice to you.
Yeah, this is sort of how my coaching practice goes. I talk about the magic of synchronicity, and when we're really living in alignment, we just experience a lot more synchronicities. So 2 separate clients, 2 separate companies, 2 separate conversations, both bring me the same quote from a book that they asked me if I'd read by Robert Greene called 48 Laws of Power, which of course I have not. And both of these conversations were around leadership, authenticity, looking for promotions, like all the things that you would expect in a career coaching type of conversation or role or leadership development role. And I find it interesting that when we think of leadership, of course, we immediately think of power. And in Robert Greene's case, for him, this idea is that it's not about good or evil, it's about just having it.
Can everyone have power in his eyes?
If you follow the 48 laws, particularly the first law, the one that was quoted to me from both clients, and that law was contain your need for importance. Always make those above you feel superior. In your desire to please and impress them, do not go too far in displaying your talents, or you might accomplish the opposite. Inspire fear and insecurity. Make your masters appear more brilliant than they are, and you will attain the heights of power. What do you think, Marissa? I did when they didn't read that quote to me, but they explained that you never want to outshine anyone else.
Yeah, when you sent me that quote, my initial reaction was just like, ick. I do feel like I've been in those scenarios in my work history where it was about, basically my manager or someone coaching me that my job is to make the person above me or the people above me look good. And I think that was a very early on theme I was taught kind of in my first job and throughout the jobs that I've had. But that doesn't always feel authentic and good to me, to feel like I need to be less than in some way or perceived as not as talented simply because I'm below someone else. Is that the way you interpret it, or what comes up when you read this quote?
Well, the way that my clients are looking at it is not so much about how they feel about their authenticity, but how great it feels to have power. How great it feels to have your name tied to things that get visibility at work, for example, or how great it feels to be seen as the go-to person, the person that you want to have lunch with. And that power, this idea that we would give up our authenticity to get it, I think is very prevalent, which is why we all read the books.
Yeah. When we talk about this kind of dimming your light or playing it small, do you think that's effective in making sure that you don't shine too much brighter than someone else?
So the story I shared for them is we always look at effectiveness. It cracks me up. We always go straight to the results. Is it effective? What life does that bring you? And for one of these clients, what that life brought her when she first read the book was she was in the in group. She had power. And she had power, but she also chose to not have some people be in the in group. That's how you keep power. And told a story of this girl that she wasn't going to be successful unless this team left. Like she just wasn't. And then this client of mine leaves, goes to a new place, and finds herself on the other receiving end. So when I asked her, well, what did that life bring you? She's like, I guess karma, which is funny. And also and yeah, a little bit. But what that life didn't bring her was more authenticity. What that life didn't really bring her was anything tangible. Power is fleeting. And she did really still like where she was. And if I told her, hey, if you just repeat this book again, you'll get back to where you were, she would repeat those steps because she really liked having the power.
And as part of that, having the power, making sure other people don't in this lesson.
Yeah, I don't know if that was a part of the book or just the way it was interpreted, but
Okay.
The story in the first client who brought up the quote, I was talking about, she had been told that she was intimidating, and she was surprised by that. And what's funny is that in my head, I'm like, yeah, I could see that. And I then get told by self that I'm well, others could sometimes be intimidated. And that was of course, I immediately said, no, not me. How could you see me as that? But that feedback that gives us information about, I was trying to shine my light less because I did know that other people felt a particular way. And the woman after said, well, what are you going to do about it? I said, I think I'm going to just shine it brighter and maybe in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
And then she shared that quote with me. And, and so, but what that life brings me is more joy and the ability to attract people that want to see the full light. I don't really want to attract those people that don't want to see that light.
I feel the same way. We talk about like calling in people in the right vibration or on the similar wavelength as you. So as you know, I love my hip hop music and rap music, but there's a line in Common's The Light where he talks about people recognizing the light, but they can't handle the glare. I don't want the people who can't handle the glare in my life. I want the people who shine equally as bright as me.
And I just don't want to take it personally when people can't handle the glare. It gives me information about where they are and what they maybe need. And I can certainly have empathy for that. But that is not a behavior that I necessarily will adjust. And I shouldn't say necessarily, I'm not adjusting. And when you are in the out group, being less you is not going to get you in the in group. Because authenticity is a trust. When someone shows up in a way that's truly them, we trust them more. And when we're showing up in a way that's not really us, hoping that we can get in the in group and then we'll trust ourselves to let our walls down, what does that life bring you? Certainly not power. And what cracked me up about this law, the 48 laws of power, were really like laws of how you give your power away in order to keep some type of perceived power. Yes, you may have great influence over your boss because you're manipulating the shit out of them and they think they're smart, but really you're the smarter one, but you're giving your power away to do so.
Yeah, because you say manipulation, and that's the first word that came to my mind when I read this quote, because it's kind of
what the book is. It's about and that's how people get in power. Is it talks about manipulation. I mean, a manipulation of words. My goodness, we learned a new word today about this man. So this author that we're not really sure who he is. Wikipedia, anyone can write that. Says he went to Berkeley. Other places say Wisconsin. We're not convinced that he's anyone because he is. What's the fancy word we learned today, Marissa?
Oh, yes. So I looked up his LinkedIn profile, which is very sparse. So it makes me question if it's really his profile. But he has 13 years experience. I'm going to try to pronounce this again. Eminence Gris.
Eminence Gris, a person who exercises power, influence in a certain sphere without holding an official position. A man after my own heart. I too aspire to get to this, to be known as your eminence. So this is where I really question, who is this Robert Greene, and is he even a real person that wrote this book, or is this 48 laws of power just something we threw out there to the masses to have them fight over these scraps and dim their lights? Because it really is a book that is very disempowering for someone that's calling it the laws of power.
I would retitle this probably as the laws of manipulation.
And that is the criticism the book gets. And it's also the world we live in, as people will say that follow it. But I go back again to this specific law because I don't think this law actually gets the life that you want, making your master appear more brilliant. There's a book called Ugly Duckling I wrote the foreword for, where she talks about how she always made her person above her look brilliant. And that is why they don't promote you.
Absolutely. I've been in that experience.
To pigeonhole yourself. I have actually told clients, when you're indispensable, they just don't have the desire or drive to promote you. And so giving your power away in the hopes that somehow that person is going to take you along with them doesn't sound like a very good law to follow.
It doesn't. I think I understand where Robert is coming from in this. That might work in a very traditional corporate setting where you're wanting to climb that corporate ladder and it's very distinct. But I mean, if you want to play that rat race of a game, I guess that's what you do. But
I even want to push back at that because this particular client is coming from that mentality of that rat race. Two different clients, two different mentalities. And I again push back because, if you're highlighting your boss, if you're really not outshining them and making this narcissistic person, like, are you working for a narcissist? First of all, are you becoming one along the way? Second of all, there are very authentic ways to climb the corporate ladder. Sally Hingelson wrote a great book called How Women Rise, The 12 Habits That Hold Us Back. There are great ways to climb it without having to make someone else feel superior. I do believe that we always make people feel a certain way. Maya Angelou very much believe in people remember how you make them feel. So above all, don't make people feel superior. Make them feel confident in you. Make them feel they trust you. And also make them feel smart, not superior. I like to use the Michael Scott analogy. Explain this to me like I'm 5. We really need to have him as an HR thought leader. Maybe Toby and him can go head to head in that one. But this idea that you are making them feel smart because you're speaking their language, you're showing up in a way that makes them feel so confident in you because they can only be as confident in you as they are in themselves. But this idea of superior and diminishing some of your light so that you can gain a tiny bit of power, no. Again, bring you. And I haven't seen that actually works as often as people think. It particularly not for women. I think men maybe perhaps it works a little bit. And that's a bias.
I think when you're making, let's say, your direct manager feel important or smarter or giving them the credit for the work that you do, yes, it's kind of giving them more power, but then I feel like if that's somebody who thrives off of that perceived power, then they're always going to want to keep you, a step below, because then how else are they going to maintain that power and control over you? And I think you're correct. A lot of times that doesn't lead to promotion. It leads to keeping you suppressed or oppressed because that's how they maintain the power.
Yeah. So Robert Greene, if you do exist, whether you were born in LA to a Jewish family or you were, that's one of the things I've read, lots of different conflicting things. One of his other brilliant ideas in there was that you don't hire your friends, you hire your enemies because you want to keep those people close. And that just goes right back to what you said, Marissa, which is that they're going to keep you right where they are. So when you contradict your own laws and your own book, my initial reaction to that after doing my research on it, my initial reaction remains the same. if I were to put this in living color words, not only did I hated it, and I am not even willing to acknowledge that these are the laws of how power works. I disagree wholeheartedly. And because you didn't have the law of money in there. You didn't have the law of you buy it. Maybe I would have given you a little more credence if you had that one in there. Although I can see why they banned this book from prisons. Because these because what you're really talking about in these laws of power is manipulation. It is taking someone who's insecure and making them feel much more secure so that you can then backstab them.
I mean, that's a good point, right? You're saying then that perhaps this works on an insecure individual. And
100%.
I think that goes back to like, who are the people that you want in your life and in your circle? I don't necessarily want to work with insecure people that need their ego constantly stroked.
I think we're all insecure, and that's why it does work on all of those people. I don't know that you want to, well, karma's a bitch. I don't know that you want to magnetically continue to attract and play that game. There's so many ways to go out there and make money. So to me, this one just seems like a lot more work, particularly because there's 48 laws. God, I mean, God only had 10. Jesus had 2. Like, it's getting a little ridiculous here, but I suppose that would have been too short of a book.
Well, we could just, hack everything and repackage it and come up with our own book. That's the 47 laws, new and improved.
Well, there's 50 now because he collaborated allegedly with 50 Cent on a 50th book. I think that one also might exist. My favorite in all the research that we did of Robert Greene, and Robert, if you ever are listening, you really should clean up your research on you, was a quote of his that he said about his own advice. Anybody who says, do not try to follow all of his advice. Anybody who did would be a horrible, ugly person to be around.
I really want to know if that quote is real.
And I love it, whether it's satire, because clearly it's apropos, or if he really did say it. And then that begs the question. He said power was neither good nor bad. So I guess what you're actually saying in that quote, Robert, is that it's not benevolent. This idea that you wouldn't take all your advice because you'd be a shit person, but you'd have a lot of money. Back to, what does that life bring you?
It sounds like an exhausting life to constantly trying to like placate other people, bring your enemies in.
And that is, that happens in corporate. And this is why I like how women rise. And I talk about my Ferris wheel of helping people work their circles and networks and leverage them in a non-icky, very authentic way. But this is how it works. Yes, you do need to have visibility. You do need all of these things. You just don't have to do them in a way that is manipulative or controlling. And we fear conflict so much. We fear not getting what we want so much that we think that we can, if we just say it in the right way, right? And anytime we get to the if we just, what we're saying is that we're puppeteers. Like that controller, if you were to use a saboteur language, is coming out and saying, I don't trust the universe. I don't trust myself. I don't trust this other person. And that was another part of his law, is that you don't trust anyone, including friends. They'll disappoint you. And what he didn't talk about in the law of power is how to trust yourself, how to know what feels right for you, how to trust what you'll even do if you get that power. I think that's the next step that all my clients have to hurdle then, is I worked really hard to get this power. Oh shit, what do I do once I'm here?
You watch out for the people below you that are trying to manipulate you. And that's what you do.
Yeah, you look for all the people that won't outshine you. And then also, how dumb is that if you've got all these people below you that don't want to outshine you? Real leaders do want their people to be a direct reflection of them.
I mean, as a people manager, I want my direct reports to shine, and I want them to, excel at the work that they do and get credit for it. I'm never trying to suppress that and then make sure that they don't outshine me. That's ridiculous. I see it as a partnership. And if they're doing great work, then I'm doing great work as their manager.
And these are very low level pit bossy type of power people. If we're also trying to not outshine superiors and play games. And when you're sitting in the C-suite, Robert, I did not find any of that experience in all the research I did for you. When you're sitting there, the value that you're really bringing is pulling out the genius of the people that you've surrounded yourself with, and hiring genius, which is Marissa's forte. If you don't know about Marissa, she is a highly sought after recruiter in Silicon Valley. And in addition to supporting those CEOs and building out their teams and taking companies public, Marissa also likes to support women in relationships. Marissa, can you tell us where to find you?
Yes, you can find me at marissasenzaki.com. That's MarisssaSenzaki. And you can find out more about the coaching that I do as well as consulting. And Katie, tell us about OWL Professional Women.
OWL Professional Women, Outstanding Women Leaders.
Outstanding Women Leaders.
We give a hoot about you and humor and authenticity too. We have a lot of powerful women soaring alongside each other. It turns out you can soar really high when you have all the right people around you that don't want to stab you in the back. And we love for you to shine your light around us. Lots of opportunities to get support through Outstanding Women Leaders. As the Chief OWL, you can also get individual coaching with me as well. I have 2 slots currently open. So you can go to owlprofessionalcoaching.com and send me a message and we can see if you're the right fit.
And tell everyone more about the podcast as well.
Outstanding Women Leaders podcast.
Yes.
Back with lots of outstanding women leaders from around the world. When we are all reading the same books, we're all thinking the same way. These podcast episodes, the blog post I write, this is intended to get you to disrupt the way you think so that you're not just thinking like everyone else and you're not thinking like us, that you're listening to your body and knowing what's right for you. So tune in to hear all of the wisdom. Check out Marissa Senzaki's post on psychological safety in the workforce if you're struggling there. And join us next Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern time for live on YouTube or catch the replay on Podbean.